Illinois faces some big challenges. Today, we're about to hear a truly honest analysis of the problems we face. Equally as important, you'll also hear an in-depth discussion of some practical solutions. This is your radio source for stories, the insight, and the answers you won't hear anywhere else. Not in the media and not coming from Springfield. You're listening to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Now, here's your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Thank you for joining us on another edition of Illinois Rising. I'm Dan Proft. You can catch me Monday through Friday, Chicago's Morning Answer, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on AM 560 with Amy Jacobson. And joining me as our guest host on this edition is Eric Kohn. He's a marketing manager for the Illinois Policy Institute. Eric, welcome.
Good to be here.
And so City of Chicago is doing its best to stamp out entrepreneurial capitalism, and it's doing a pretty good job. I mean, I must admit, the latest instance of this is a Cook County Circuit Court judge, because it's really a three-branch effort to stamp out entrepreneurial capitalism here in Chicago and Cook County. Cook County Circuit Court judge ruling in favor of the City of Chicago in a lawsuit concerning regulation of food trucks in the city. You see the food trucks around if you amble about the city, looking for something to eat around lunchtime, all kinds of offerings. Well, here's the rules that food trucks challenged with the help of, food truck operators challenged with the help of the Institute for Justice. Cannot operate within 200 feet of a brick and mortar business that sells food, which includes everything from McDonald's to CVS to, what you would traditionally think of sit-down restaurants. And also, you have to plug in a GPS tracker so that the government knows where you are at all times. The Cook County Circuit Court judge, in infinite wisdom, ruled that both of those were constitutional. The Institute for Justice has promised to appeal the ruling. And what's the Illinois Policy Institute and your particular perspective on this, Eric?
It's disappointing. It's incredibly disappointing. Look, people benefit from more options, and the kind of sit-down restaurants that you referenced, I mean, these are different dining experiences. If you're really looking for fine dining, I can think, oh, well, I'm going to go stop at a food truck then. So it's more options for people. And talk about onerous. I mean, you go walk around downtown in the Loop, try to find a place where you can be 200 feet away from any of these things, from a CVS, from a McDonald's, from a Jimmy John's, from, any of the various sit-down restaurants. They're squeezing them entirely out of downtown and eliminating something that people tend to like.
The tracker is particularly Orwellian, too. I don't like that at all. But the circuit court judge in Cook County, of course, obviously a constitutional scholar. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the bench in Cook County. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Laura Pekarik. She is the plaintiff in this case. She is a food truck operator. The food truck that she operates provides cupcakes for courage, right?
That's right.
All right. Laura, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
So the basis for this suit, you obviously thought the two regulations that we described were onerous and negatively impacted your ability to run your business. Give us the kind of the genesis of your food truck business idea to focus on cupcakes. And there's so many brick and mortar I mean, I don't really understand it, but cupcakes drive people insane. I see them in my neighborhood. They're brick and mortars cupcake stores, just cupcakes and coffee and whatnot, but they seem to always be packed. And so you decided to take a similar concept but make it mobile. Why?
Well, definitely I agree that people go crazy over cupcakes. I saw that and realizing that I think certain individuals probably thought that it was a fad and it would go out of style after a while, but they're definitely here to stay, as we can see that for many years now. About 5 years ago, when my sister was undergoing her treatment for cancer, she's in remission, she's doing really well right now, we were experimenting with cupcake flavors and baking, and it became a passion of mine about cupcakes and taking our regular desserts that you see in a wide variety of places in restaurants and stores and putting them into cupcake form. And so at the same time that my sister was finishing her treatment and kind of getting her life back to normalcy, food trucks were becoming more popular, and we saw a couple of them pop up in our area and in Chicago. And so we did see an another cupcake truck, and we thought, like, we could definitely do this. Like, I think our cupcakes are really good, and so we kind of went on the path to that, and I found a food truck, and I had some recipes, a recipe book that I created, and so I bought the food truck with my savings that I had, and outfitted it to be a mobile cupcake truck, went through the licensing process, and took it to the road.
Why go the food truck route, and why not, as I'm sure the kind of brick and mortar cupcakes joints would say, Sprinkles or whichever cupcake joints? Why don't you just do a storefront like them so it's a level playing field? This is the kind of argument that brick and mortar restaurants make.
Well, I think that for me, being someone like myself, I didn't have as much like classical experience. I wasn't classically trained, and I wanted to work for myself. And so with the food truck opportunity, although it was a great investment I had to make, and I still had to find a commissary. I still pay rent. And when I was just a food truck, of course, I own a brick and mortar now. But I still paid rent. I still paid sales tax. I had to pay garbage, water, all of these things. And I decided instead of to have a storefront where, people would come to me, I wanted to go to my customers and find them instead of being in one location and picking it. I wanted to be able to travel around and go where I felt my customers were, and I found them to be.
So what was the experience like running a food truck, and particularly what was it like facing these regulations that you can't be within 200 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant and this GPS tracker so that they can know where you are at any given time?
Well, in the beginning, when there was just a handful of food trucks out there, when the food trucks just came to the Chicago market, I would definitely say that it was more simple, and there were more parking opportunities available, just being that the market wasn't saturated. Parking in Chicago as a consumer or just someone trying to get from point A to point B and park their car is difficult. I'm sure many people are aware of this. And then we can't take our truck into a parking garage, which makes it convenient for the consumer. So being on the streets, we had to try to find our parking spots the best we could in the legal zones, because a 200-foot rule was there always, even when I got licensed. But in 2012, as food trucks became ever more popular and business owners were just packaging their goods at their commissary, like I described earlier, and then putting them on the truck, in 2012, the city of Chicago changed the laws and made it available for us to prepare the food on truck and cook on board, like you see in other cities and things like that, which in theory, this is a wonderful thing. Yeah, great. Let's have a more diverse food options out there and available. However, with that, in consideration that all these food truckers thought, this is great, let's do this. This is a great business opportunity. Let's try this out. Parking didn't change. It still was difficult. So when I started in 2011, when there was just a handful of food trucks out there, and it did get ever increasing over time, it became even more difficult once they made this ordinance change, and more trucks came to market, but the parking didn't change. So,
how does that compare to other major cities? Do you know, like L.A., New York, other major cities, and how they handle food trucks?
Oh, it varies from city to city. I mean, I don't know particularly. I wouldn't be able to quote certain towns for you, but I know that this is very unheard of. Specifically, the way that the city of Chicago does it, that they can balance the interests of restaurants and food trucks. I don't think any city has done that.
What is the relationship between your food truck and the restaurants or brick and mortar proprietors? I mean, is there really antagonism, or is this in part kind of politically generated with just a few voices that are being given disproportionate power through their city council members?
Well, I know for a fact in my experience, when food trucks, I would love to give you dates, but I mean, it's just a feeling. I've been doing this for 5 years now. In the beginning, after about a year, when food trucks, again, the city was issuing more food truck licenses, and it became a more popular business endeavor, the restaurants were becoming more stringent upon us and down upon us as like a burden to them. And so if a truck, and it's very complicated, 200 feet, you'd have to really take like a tape measure out there with you. There's certain islands, and we described this in our case, that there's certain islands that it pushes all the food trucks to. And restaurants definitely would come out, and like restaurant owners, and say, you can't be here and we're going to call the cops on you. And sometimes, and this is not only from my personal experience, but there's other trucks, and of course there's a community of us, so we would talk to each other, and we were trying to figure this whole situation out. Like, how do we, operate our business, sell to our customers? Our customers are calling for us on Facebook and Twitter to be in these certain locations, and how do we combat this idea and still be successful and don't go under and hold when these restaurant owners are doing this to us.
And the result,
not to us, I guess it's the wrong way of putting it.
All right, but by extension, and the result is you pulled your truck out of the loop, I should say, right?
We're still licensed, but over time, I did stop operating. I mean, I'm not operating it right now anymore. I was, but it definitely became like, before the first 2-3 years, it was like a primary part of my business. Even I opened up my brick and mortar about a year and a half after I started my food truck, because I just had to make a decision which way I was going to take my company. And I still operated it for a year or two after regularly, and it was like, I need to get this truck out on the road. This is my bread and butter. But over time, literally, due to parking circumstances, it became harder and harder to do business. My driver would go out there, and she'd be looking for parking. We'd post stops that we knew were okay, and then she couldn't get parking there.
You get crowded out, and right. All right, Laura, we're going to have to leave it there. Laura Pekarik, she's the owner of Cupcakes for Courage. And Laura, good luck with the appeal of the Cook County Circuit Court ruling in this case. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.